95% of preparation of success is preparation. Once you're prepared and once you go to the starting line, you got to go as fast as you can and just, try to do the best you can. And don't worry about the mistakes. Just worry about the solutions.
Our guest today is an entrepreneur, actor, writer, director, producer, and stand-up comedian who has acted and worked with multiple Academy Award-winning actors, filmmakers, producers, and Fortune 500 leaders. Welcome to the show, host of Long Shot Leaders, a podcast that tells the story of underdogs who have found their success, Micheal Stein.
Hey, Mike, pleasure to be with you.
And thank you for having me on your show recently. A little shout out to Long Shot Leaders. You guys can check that out at longshotleaders.com. It's on every podcast app that I know of. And he does a great job with the show. So I appreciate you taking the time to be with us this time around.
My pleasure.
This whole episode is going to be a little bit different than what we usually talk about. Usually it's a big focus on entrepreneurship and business, which we will cover because you have that in your background. But I also want to talk about some fun stuff, right? So it's a little bit unique to your story. And I want to encourage anyone who's listening, check out Micheal's story right here because it's going to show the heart tug that got him interested in this stuff. And I want you guys to reflect and think, what is that in your life that maybe you have inside you right now that you're looking to have it come out and you can get into your greatness? So let's start with that. Which came first, Mike? So going back to your early days, was it acting? I'm wondering, or was it stand-up? Can you share some of the early days in the spotlight with us?
Well, it was stand-up because I was a basket case for a kid. I'll start with my typical long shot story. I feel like I come from a long line of long shots. My grandmother escaped the Russian concentration camps. My dad was a New York homeless street kid, became a millionaire only to become homeless again. So I grew up with a lot of health issues. I grew up with like ADD, a stutter, health problems. And I really didn't have any success other than making people laugh, or at myself or others. So that's really was the first thing was stand up, and that's what I did when I was 19 years old. My second bit of success in my story was when I was 10 years old, I saw the movie Rocky and I said, oh shit, here's a guy like me. He's not successful. He keeps on getting knocked down. He's funny, but he's not smart. I wasn't a good student. I had learning issues. But the one thing difference between this guy is that he was physically fit. So every day since then I worked out. And by the time I was 16, from like 11 years old to 16, when I was in high school, I got to be a physical fitness trainer at my local gym because I was very successful at being physically fit. Now I'm like a funny, fit guys. I'm like, time plus effort. And that led on to my entrepreneurial, things. I wanted to be like my dad. He was an entrepreneur. And I told my high school tutor, I said, she's like, what do you want to do when you graduate? And I said, I want to start a business. I want to be an actor. I want to be a stand-up comedian and I want to be an entrepreneur, which back then to say an entrepreneur, that was very avant-garde. So yeah. She's like, I know you, I've helped you study for the past 2 years. Why don't you work with your hands like a gardener or something? Cause not everybody's meant to do what they want to do. I was like, screw you. My dad never finished the 8th grade.
It's great though. A lot of times when someone tells you, I had a similar situation, but when people tell you, like they totally miss that you have these gifts and they feel like it's not attainable because they kind of gave up on their dream. And I don't know this woman who said that, and it's not even trying to be a shot at them, but it's an example of a lot of times when someone does tell you like, you should try this, you should try that, because what your ambitions are right here seem like they're just too far out there. Or I can't really understand and relate because they cannot relate. They're not in your shoes. So fine. But I love the fact that you didn't let that stop you and you continued to go.
No, I didn't. The day after high school, I started a business, and you know what I did? I failed miserably. The business tanked within like 2 days. I was like, well, I'm fucking 18. I want to go outside and play. I want to go, it's summertime. But then 6 months later, I started another business being a nightclub promoter in LA, which back then was a pretty prestigious thing. And within 6 months, I became the number one nightclub promoter in my age bracket. And then I was off to the races, and that got me my first acting gig. I playing Dirk Diggler in the Dirk Diggler Story, which is a short film, which became the movie Boogie Nights, which I appear in as well. And it had kind of helped me with entrepreneurial, other aspects, and then being a filmmaker and then making films and making a lot of connections in the nightclub industry. And it led me to a lot of other avenues. So
what were some of the clubs that you were playing back then?
The way it was done back then is like there was a famous clubs like that had slow nights. Like, so there was this club called 7969 Santa Monica Boulevard, and it was just known as the address. And they had a slow Wednesday. So I said, look, I'll bring in the crowd. I get the door, you get the bar, you know. But I wasn't even 21. I was 20, you know. And then, so he's like working out a deal, and that's the way a nightclub promoter works. He sees a venue that has dead nights, and you take over that night, so you don't have to pay anything other than you have ownership of the revenue stream that can come in on that night.
So you were promoting the night, you were getting other people, but did you also go up and do time too? Like you would actually be the MC of the event, or you were just totally the promoter at that point?
These are dance clubs. So the reason why I became a nightclub
okay.
promoter is because I did stand up when I was 19, and I brought a lot of people there, and I did decently. I said, you know, you're not going to make money as a stand up comedian trying to promote people to show up there. That's not the way that works. I said, there's nightclubs, dance clubs. I said, I can get like 500, 600, 700 people to a club, charge $10 a head. You know, in the late 80s, that was like a big thing that people did back then. And in LA, you were like a mini celebrity if you did it.
You kind of had these tight circles of people that knew who you were. You were the cool guy, the promoter. A lot of people knew what was going on, and you always knew kind of like what was going on in every club, right?
The ADD and the ADHD, you know, working overdrive and being hyper, going out 7 nights a week, 7 days a week. You're running for president without education, basically. You're shaking as many hands as you can, and you're just meeting as many people as you can, telling them to come by your nightclub. And I have a lot of energy.
And was the Boogie Nights, the Dirk Diggler role, was that your first opportunity to get into a major motion picture, or were you doing some other stuff? Because I know you also have a film background too. You were a director, right? So,
well, that was because of this, because I started dating this girl, and I really liked her a lot. I didn't know anything about Hollywood. I just knew I wanted to be an actor. And it turned out to be that her dad was the most powerful man in Hollywood at the time. And I just stumbled upon this, like, you know, and that's how I got to do like a big promotional event for the movie Batman, which was, you know, a nightclub event. I had 4,000 people, and that opened doors. So then I got to meet like her sister's boyfriend, who was Paul Thomas Anderson, who's like this, you know, 17-year-old kid who just didn't have a car and he needed a ride home. And he wanted to make a short film. And I had him rolling one night. It was, somebody laughed at one of my jokes. And I'm like trying to get him to laugh at four, so, and then he called me up a couple of days later and said, look, I got an idea for a short film. And I've never been in a film before. I knew I was as an extra. I spent like, I was in some big movies as an extra, but that's nothing, So I said, yeah, I'll do it. So, years later, it turned out to be the movie Boogie Nights. I played Dirk Diggler, and it was like a formal thing. And it was my very first thing. And then watching him go through that process of being a successful filmmaker, I said, holy shit, I want to try to do this too, because that'll be a good way to try to be an actor by writing your own screenplays and, making your own films. So I dumped the nightclub business, which was very lucrative and being a celebrity and, mini celebrity. And I became a production assistant, which is a peon on the set. And I did that for 3.5 years, then learning about how to make films so that I can make my own short film, similar to Avenue, what Paul Thomas Anderson did, made an award-winning short film. And mine did really well too. It got bought by HBO. It had me a lot of, got me a lot of meetings around town. And I got close to making one of my screenplays into a movie, but no movie deal. And this is a long haul. So I said, I got to try to be an entrepreneur again, because I want to make my own movie, but I got to pay for it. But I was broken and in debt. So I said, I'm going to start something on the internet, because the internet was like new still. And I was like, that's how people are making money. So I decided to sell tarps on the internet. Why tarps? My dad's used to sell tools in the 60s.
Did you ever go out back in the old days? I just want to know, to give us a little bit of background on working with your dad, or maybe if you didn't directly work with him, some of the influence. You said that he made it financially successful, lost it all, and then had to make it again, right? Was that your dad or your grandfather?
No, my dad.
That was your dad.
Yeah, he was really young, and he had a tool business in the 60s that kind of fledged, he and his partner. So he folded it. And this is like then in the 70s, there's the calculators came along that were smaller than ever, those little small calculators. So he created a mail order campaign, which was like the internet back then. You send out a big mail order, and in 6 weeks you can get this product. So they send checks, and it turned out to be like millions. That was his, like they called him the calculator kid, the suppliers did. And he made millions of dollars. And then he lost it all from a fast, crazy lifestyle. And then he went back to selling tools. And then his old partner decided to start his own business in the mid 70s. And that company was called Harbor Freight. So that's like a multi-billion-dollar publicly traded
Right.
company now.
Yeah.
And I saw this growing up, rich dad, poor dad kind of scenario. So when
Hmm.
it came time to start my own business to pay for my film, my dad's like, here's a catalog of products of that Smitty, Alan Smith, who started Harbor Freight. Here's a catalog of his stuff. Why don't you sell one of these products? And I said, well, the only thing that seems to make sense to me is these tarps. They're colorful. They have a lot of uses and it's nichey. So within 6 months, I made enough money to make my movie, and I made this film called Love Hollywood Style with Faye Dunaway, Andy Dick, and Coolio, and many other actors you've seen. I
Yeah.
wrote, directed, produced, and acted in it, and it did decently, for an independent film. But I didn't make
Right.
my money back, and I said, I'm going to take this business and I'm going to nurture it and grow it rather than trying to pay for a film. And so ever since then, it's made well over $100 million and it's grown and it continues to grow. And we're starting another company out of this company in 6 months. And knock on wood, things are going well. And that's
So
kind
from
of like a Reader's
tarps,
Digest version.
I mean, because it's Michael Stein Media, right? Is the name of the company currently.
That's my
So
that's
you
my media company. Yeah.
Right. So this tarp business kind of it taught you, look, I'm out here, I'm hustling, whatever. Fill in the blank with the product, which is kind of cool. The fact that it is something random. But anyone who's listening, find your thing. And if it's tarps today, it could transition into something else. Like some people who have tuned into the show, you guys know my story. And if you don't, go check me out on Michael Stein's podcast because I share it there about how I transitioned into, there's like different versions of my story that different times. Like I went from selling mattresses to insurance to eventually becoming my own business owner and getting back into media, which is where it all started. So it's kind of like a circle. And in your case, like you had these nightclubs and this promotion thing that made money, but then you wanted to pursue your film career, which you did. Realize being a PA, you're getting paid peanuts. You're basically, they think like he's just happy to be here, right? Because you're seeing all this cool stuff going on. Needed to make some money. The tarps thing worked out enough to at least teach you there's some business skills here, tools. And then how did that transition into the media company long term?
Well, the media company came before my tarp business. That was when I making all the films that I make, because I wrote, directed uh,
So you already
documentaries.
had Michael Stein Media like established back then, at least the entity.
Absolutely. I formed, yeah,
Cool.
right after I jumped through a lot of things. So when I decided to stop promoting nightclubs, well, when I was still promoting nightclubs, I did a documentary on the history of raves and house music around the United States. So I went around the country for 4 months and I did this documentary with the creators of house music and raves. And that got some distribution, but once again, didn't make its money back. So, but it was successful because it was a project that started, finished, and it's just recently actually they're making a big rave documentary, and they called me for footage for it and all that.
Hmm.
So it's that was one of the first things. But I said, I need to become a formal filmmaker, so I started working in film production. But that's where Stein Media. I started making other films. I did other documentaries, and then I did my short film, which won many, like I said, got bought by HBO and got me many deals, and many
Can
many
we check that
meetings
out? Is
close
that
to
on
a deal.
YouTube at all, or is there a place we
It
could
is. It's
stream
called
it?
Rituals and Resolutions, and you could see it online.
Cool. Yeah, send me the link to it. I'll get that in the show notes so everybody could check it
Yeah.
out.
Half-hour drama about habitual people that let, their rituals rule their life.
Yeah, that's cool, man. Another thing I'd love to pick your brain on is aside from your dad, who, you get to see him kind of as an entrepreneur, good, bad, ugly, you were right there directly in front of it, learning in the trenches, if you will. Were there other influences you had, whether it's in stand up comedy that kind of influenced you into that? I'd love to hear some of the classic people who maybe spark some interest in that. And then also filmmakers, like who did you study some people, maybe not directly, but just kind of influenced by them at all?
Well, okay, I'll systematically answer that. So
Yeah.
entrepreneurship was my dad because he was an entrepreneur, and my dad's dad was an entrepreneur. And they were fledgling back and forth. They all ended up poor in the end. And I saw this ebb and flow. So and even on my mom's side, they were he was an entrepreneur. My great grandfather owned a confectionery factory in Kiev, but then all the Jews were getting kicked out of Russia, getting sent to either concentration camps in Russia or kicked out. So I had to leave this, so I grew up around business quite a bit, and hearing that story, and then also watching Smitty, Alan Smith, who started Harbor Freight.
Mhm.
watching and watching that journey. So that was my entrepreneurial kind of thing. I was kind of bred into that, hustling. Being a hustler was like a thing that was repeated to me constantly. My dad, saying, being a New York guy, saying, look, you got to be a hustler, you got to do the hustle bustle, you got to be an entrepreneur, and that was just on my DNA. Stand up comedy and being an entertainer. I'm the youngest in a large family. I was, had all these issues when I was younger, very volatile family. They say there's behind every stand up comedian, there's a lot of misery. Well,
Yeah.
I'm no stranger to that. So
Well, comedy's an escape too a lot of times, and I know a lot of great comedians who've had kind of a rougher upbringing that they kinda just had to seek out this as, like, maybe it was a mechanism within themselves to kind of escape it a little bit, escape reality. I don't know for sure, I'm not a psychologist, but I
it
can
is.
definitely see that there's a little bit
You're
of
right.
escape. But also there's this little bit of crazy that makes people funny too, where you're not just playing everything safe, like, there's a little bit of an edge that sometimes can lead to comedy too. Who were some of the guys you liked? I mean, were you old school? Like, did you like the Rodney Dangerfields of it or just kinda did your own thing?
There was 3 people. There was 3 people that really, influenced me. Like, one was Jackie Gleason in Smoking the Bandit. I saw that guy and I was like, "Whatever that guy's doing, I wanna fucking do that guy." I was just a kid. I just found that I
It's
was as a
awesome.
kid, I just found that, also, I didn't mention Rita Moreno in Under the Rainbow. She was hilarious. I just, even like 6 years
Mhm.
old watching her, I'm like, "I wanna do whatever she's doing." And then Robin Williams, when he was on Happy Days, before, he was Mork on Happy Days. I said, "Whatever this guy is, that's what I wanna do." But as far as formal stand-up comedy goes, watching somebody do stand-up comedy, I was introduced to a lot of stuff at an early age, and I saw Richard Pryor at on cable on Long Beach concert, and it's the most vulgar. And I just heard that, and I was like, whatever this guy is doing, that's what I want to do for sure. I want to
Mhm.
do that. That's like, this makes so much sense to me. So that really clicked for me big time.
Yeah, he had that impact on a whole generation of comedians. I mean, it doesn't matter your style. You just saw him and just saw how he went for it. It was like almost what he did for comedy is similar to like what Coltrane did for jazz. You know what I mean? Like he just kicked the door in and like built this whole style and kind of changed the way things were done a little bit. It was almost like not a free for all, but he just encouraged so many people that came after him. So very cool. Yeah, Richard Pryor, shout out. One of the
For
OGs
sure.
of
The
that style of
Yeah.
comedy. The OG for sure. Yeah. Give him the respect that he deserves. Very cool. And then what about in film? I mean, is there someone like a director, a style that you appreciate?
As far as who I appreciate is Scorsese, Woody Allen, although he was a little wacky, but I mean, as far
Sure.
as filmmaking, and Quentin Tarantino. As far as who have I learned, it's obvious, watching someone like Paul Thomas Anderson. I'd be lying if I didn't say, like, just watching that whole thing form from being friends with somebody and watching it just step by step by step. And I didn't think it would be possible to have a
Mhm.
friend. It's always the other guy that that can do that. Like, these names that you hear about, like Scorsese or Spielberg, or those guys, but not somebody that so closely. And watching that happen step by step, that's where I learned probably most about filmmaking is from him.
Yeah, I could talk to you about film all day long and get a little bit sidetracked, but I don't want to do that. I know that our audience is tuning in. They really love, hearing a story. Hearing you mentioned this, I'd like to get into this now for a little bit. Is as a youngster, you even mentioned like that you had a little bit of a problem with speech, or kind of sounds like you were kind of a little bit late coming out of your box a little bit, right? Getting
Yeah.
comfortable and confident with
Yeah.
speaking, and funny enough and you're on the stage doing comedy. It's quite a trajectory. Walk us through that a little bit. How did you break through those barriers too?
My mom looked like Marilyn Monroe and she had a personality like Don Rickles. So I tried to, and I grew up in a very fast talking East Coast family. So
Mhm,
I tried to talk, and I was a fast thinker, but I couldn't, I would stumble over my words because I'd be trying to communicate like my mom. My dad was like De Niro. He was smooth and he would, but he didn't have to talk as fast as my mom did. She was like just lightning. So I would trip over my words, and so when it came time to take my first acting class when I was in like high school, the teacher's like, "You're very fast, but you stumble over your words and you get tongue tied, and you need to take a cork in your mouth and try to talk with that for a week and periodically."
yeah.
Yeah. like a cigar, like you're
Well,
talking
you're
through a
talking
cigar.
now, and I don't notice any impediment. So
Well,
obviously
no.
this either worked or you figured something out. No. So did the
This is when I
cork
was like
actually
this is when I was
never
like
heard that in
before
my
I was
life. Yeah.
when I was like 6 or 7 years old, but
I
then
know,
the
but now
cork
you
thing
talk
was when I was
fine.
like
So
15.
so did it work?
Yeah.
Like what the hell?
Yeah, no, the cork worked, and also it's like a muscle, and plus the older you get, but growing up with my family, if you don't, if they smell blood in the water, you're screwed. So you gotta fight for your space in
Yeah.
conversation and anything.
And holding on to it as long as you can, right?
Yeah, so maybe that's
Mhm.
why I'm a talker, because you'd have to fight for your space to talk at the dinner table or guard your food because you're the youngest, So, it's just survival of the fittest in my family. So by the time I did stand up when I was 19, I was the opposite of what my problem was, because I attacked it quite a bit. And plus, that's how I survived, is by trying to be funny, and
Mhm.
as opposed to, because I was put in a school for special needs, like it was called Fernald School at UCLA. Well, there was like people that had like severe learning disabilities. So I was there for like 6 months. This is when I was like 6 or 7 years old.
We have a little bit of a similar story. I know you heard mine. I didn't have anything quite like that, but I was pulled out of classes all the time. The catch to me is like you pull a kid out of a class because they have one thing that they're struggling with. For me, it was reading comprehension. I was kind of like a slower reader and, just kind of struggled with a little bit in that regard. And so they took me out and I was reading books with, 4 or 5 other kids that had the same struggle. And now I'm not in English class and now I'm not making it to the next math class because I'm over here. And it's like, how can you do that to a kid? Now I'm going to be like behind because now when I go to do my homework, I just missed out on half of that math class and they're going to quiz me on what they just taught. But now I'm over here sitting here reading Dr. Seuss for the 84th time. What are we doing? Um, so that's my little gripe on that. I just think, there's
I
got to be
agree
a
with
better
that.
way. Got to be a better
My
way.
little my daughter has my youngest one. She has the ADHD, as they call it. I don't pay too much credence to it, but that same scenario goes on with her, and you just got to, it's just time plus effort plus, you got to try to figure out what works for you, and you fight through it, and that's kind of, I guess, what I did.
Yeah. So this is cool, man. You got the club promotion, stand-up comedy, writing your own stuff, acting in it, directing it. Very cool. Dirk Diggler role turns into a huge movie that's like a cult classic now, Boogie Nights. Very, very cool, upbringing. I mean, scary moments with your dad, some cool moments where he was on top of the world and you saw his buddy break off and go and do something great, which probably is a little bittersweet. Um, I'd love before we hit the break real quick, and we're going to come back and kind of circle this, get into the more current stuff you're working on in your podcast. But through all that craziness, man, is there something that you just go back and you think of, you know, whether it's a favorite gig you did stand up or just a crazy club night that you promoted and like everything came together? Is there something you want to share? Just like a really cool highlight from all of that craziness?
Well, as far as nightclubs go, because there's different departments, but nightclubs is, to me, it was the Batman movie. I was 21 years old.
Is this the one with Keaton you're talking about? 89? Like,
Yeah. So I'm sitting there with my girlfriend. Her dad's the most powerful man in Hollywood. I just visiting up Aspen, Colorado for the first time. We took a Learjet up there. I'm freaking out. I was a poor kid in a rich neighborhood in Encino, but we're talking Bel Air and we're talking really rich people. So and I'm wearing a black leather jacket. I feel like I'm left out, like, walking around Aspen. So then I see my friend, an acquaintance friend. His name's Chris Peters. His dad and my girlfriend's dad are partners. And I see him and I was like, oh, he's wearing a black leather jacket. I'm wearing a black leather jacket. We walk into this restaurant called Mezzaluna. And then I said, he goes, what have you been up to? I said, I'm promoting nightclubs. I said, what have you been up to? He goes, I want to promote nightclubs too. And I was like, oh, here's some value I got. Now I feel a little confidence to could talk about something that I feel good at. So I go on a roll and there's like 18 people at the table. And I'm saying, if we do this big movie promotion, and I devised this whole plan to do a promotion for the movie Batman, which is coming out 6 months later in June because it's Christmas time in Aspen.
mhm.
And then I said, in 6 months from now, we could do the biggest nightclub event for a movie ever in history. We can have 4,000 people at the Park Plaza Hotel, which was the biggest. It was like it's been in movies. Like that's where they
Oh,
want
yeah.
to do the biggest. And I composed this whole thing. Next thing I know, 2 weeks later, I'm down at Warner Brothers. I'm walking the lot with John. I'm talking to the head of advertising at Warner Brothers. We're planning the movie, and it to this day, 4,000 people. I think that was my biggest accomplishment as far as nightclubs go. That was a major movie nightclub event. Can't more than 4,000 people is huge. And that was,
Was Keaton there? Like, was Danny Elfman there? And it was also was that by who directed that Batman? Was that Burton?
That was Tim Burton.
Tim Burton, right?
I
Any of
think
them
Prince
show up?
came by because Prince did the music.
Yeah, I remember that song.
Yeah, but Michael Keaton didn't show up. But the producer show, because I'm dating the son and the daughter, the boyfriend, and
and then obviously Jack Nicholson is another huge actor that was.
I don't think Nicholson just showed up there. Kim Basinger showed up, and there were several other people that were in the movie. They might have been there as over 4,000 people. This is different than the premiere. I went to the premiere also, and then the premiere was at 2020 Nightclub, which is about 400 people. Because it's more intimate. It's a premiere.
That was in LA
party.
As well. That's in LA. Yeah.
And I remember, here's a funny little thing. I'm sitting there with the producer of the movie, Peter Guber, and I'm walking in because we all took the limo together. And Henry Winkler, the Fonz, goes up to Peter, and I was like, I never met Henry Winkler before. I always remember the Fonz, and he turned into like an old Jewish guy right in front of me. He's like, Peter, wonderful, Mazel Tov, what an accomplishment, so wonderful. I'm thinking the Fonz is like an old Jew.
He is.
He's
it's like an uncle. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like an old uncle.
Very cool, man. Michael Stein, so many cool things that you've been working on, and we didn't even touch too much on the podcast and your business and what you got going on today. So we're going to take a quick 2-minute timeout. We'll be right back with Michael Stein. Podcasting is a great way to engage with your audience and stay consistently relevant. The only problem is you don't have the time or desire to produce your own show. You simply want it done for you, and that's where Social Chameleon comes in. All you need to do is press record and upload the files. We'll handle the rest. From planning, production, post-production, distribution, and digital marketing, we have you covered. We realize that times are tough and funds are tight, and Social Chameleon believes in building supportive business relationships. By clicking on the link in this promo, we'll provide you 7 free podcasting tips to get started, as well as a free 30-minute online consultation. This is the perfect opportunity for entrepreneurs, keynote speakers, industry experts, influencers, and anybody who has a personal brand. With Social Chameleon, we help you build a brand that is out of this world. We're ready and waiting, so what are you waiting for? Click on the link to get started today. Hey guys, it's Mike. I'd like to give a proper shout out to Navigator Bookkeeping. Look, for a long time, I ran my business without really understanding the full financial picture. I used my gut and my bank account balance to make decisions, which led to some poor choices and constant stress over my business's finances. I knew something needed to change. At the beginning of 2021, I made a decision that helped pave a more clear path for my business. I started working with Navigator Bookkeeping. Since then, my bookkeeping has been handled for me. I now understand the full financial story of my business, making important financial decisions much easier now, and it helps me plan for where my business is going. I highly recommend giving Navigator Bookkeeping an opportunity to help your business. Check them out at navigatingyourbooks.com. Again, that's navigatingyourbooks.com. It's time to know the full financial story of your business. All right, we're back in action with Michael Stein. Remember, you can connect with him on social media, and I have everything clickable in the show notes. He's going to send over a couple more resources for you to check out: his website, his podcast, his movie. Michael, bring us now up to speed in what you're doing today. The Long Shot Leaders, obviously, you have your own personal long shot story, and so do several family members, and you're helping your audience out. Bring us up to like when you created this and where you see it going.
Well, yeah, Long Shot Leaders, telling my story, because I've seen the ebb and flow of like failure and success so much. And I wanted to really record the algorithm of people that have started from a low point and finished off a high point and sustained a high point, whether it's financial, spiritual, whatever, but usually it's, financial. And that's why I wanted to do Long Shot Leaders. So to really kind of figure out what's the commonalities that these people have that started from that, point. So, incidentally, as far as today is concerned, continuing to do long shot leaders, have another podcast we're starting in 2 months called the Stein Time Show, which is more related to entertainment and stand-up
Cool.
comedians. And then we have 2 months after that, we have the Bolator podcast, which is this new company that I'm starting, which is a whole new lifestyle patented brand of products. It's outdoor related. It's a backpack that's a soft cooler that opens up to a tarp. That's also a hammock that has a drain for survival and all these pockets in it. It's really, an interesting family of products that's hopefully will be the next household name like, Yeti or something that you'll hear about.
You are just in the tarp business, man. You can't get away from it.
Well,
That's
yeah, we're
awesome.
trying to really branch off into like an outdoor, like all kinds of outdoor products,
Yeah.
with like, survival tone to it. And
One-stop shop. You're in that realm, and they can get everything they need from you.
that's
Yeah.
what Bolator is all about. That's the name of the new company. And
Mhm.
the podcast, so, where we're going to interview like outdoor influencers that talk about outdoor adventures that they've been
Yeah.
through.
Very cool. I'm looking forward to Stein Time. I'll definitely be checking that out because I love entertainment. And now, do you ever like find yourself if you're hanging out somewhere, you got some buddies coming in from out of town, or you're traveling? Let's say you're in Chicago for the weekend, hanging out with friends. I'm just making this up. Do you ever say, I'm going to go do an open mic or something just to go try some material? Do you still have that in your belt, or do you kind of just say, at this point, I'm kicking back?
It's funny you should say that because, well, I've done stand up in a while and I've been, I'm starting in 2 months. I have a trip planned for New York and Connecticut. So
Hmm.
I'm doing stand up in New York, I'm doing stand up in Connecticut, and then I'm here in Texas. I'm going to do the whole area in the Central Texas area, the whole circuit out here. And I'm doing stand up indefinitely. I'm not going to stop. Probably, I'll
So,
be that old guy. I'll be like, wait, you died on stage. What happened? But
oh shit.
when I go back to LA, I have a bunch of gigs planned out.
Hmm.
So, yeah,
It's in your blood though, right? I mean, that's one of the things, like, it's like me with drumming. Like, I don't always consistently I'm not gigging, or I do worship drumming, and stuff like that, but I haven't, like, there's been a couple of years where I didn't play just because I was so heavy into business, and then I go back and play, and I don't lose my skill really. Obviously, you get better if you're practicing 7 days a week, all day, 12 hours a day, just like you would in comedy, but I feel like there's this thing that's in your blood, right? With comedy, same kind of thing.
I
Comes
think
back
there's a
to you?
big subject for anybody like driving and listening right now. I think it's a big subject because just because you leave, yeah, stand up's been on since I'm 19 years old, off and on, and I haven't done it for several years. But I think that I, I stopped because I wanted to raise my kids and I wanted to be around. I just look, I'm either going to go on to and go deep dive in this. Now that I'm actually starting a brand, you're like, Mike, you're going to start doing stand up when you're starting this brand. I'm like, yeah, actually, yeah, because I'm going to start doing trade shows. I'm going to have night times open. I'm going to do I'm going to do spots in those cities that I'm doing the trade shows, and I'm going to make this work because I now have more time to do this because I spent so much time raising my kids and being, there for them. You can't travel to places.
How old are
Now
your
my kids
kids now, Mike?
are 17 and 14,
Okay,
right? So
cool.
they're like getting
Yeah.
to the age like they got friends. They're like, we're
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
So
They
I
wanna
have
kinda be,
more.
like, doing their own thing for sure. Um,
Yeah.
Really good topic because I know a lot of our listeners are entrepreneurs that also have children. A lot of my friends and people I've had on the show also have children. It's a topic we talk about raising kids and how to try to do it, and sometimes it's unconventional ways, and I have my daughter in a really new, more progressive school right now that we're very happy with. And I think it's cool the fact that a lot of times people have to kind of put something on the back burner. For me, it was drums. I was playing out at clubs all the time. I got serious, saved up for, the engagement ring, got married. My daughter was born. I was a business person. I was sales rep, door to door, all that good stuff. And then got into like management at a company, and then eventually started my own company. And I wasn't drumming during any of that because I was, 24/7 in business mode. And then it starts to feel like, for me, I'm speaking from my heart right now, it starts to feel like, oh, man, what are you doing? Like, this is what you were made to do. God gave you these gifts, go do it. And just in the last couple of years, I started playing again. It just feels so good, man. It comes right back to me. And I think I just want to encourage anyone who's listening, like, look at Michael's story too, where, yeah, he's got all the reasons to just focus on this business. But you know what? If you're focused on business the whole time, and the idea is financial freedom, which I don't know. I didn't ask you that question. We'll talk about it. But for me, financial freedom means more time with Isabel, my daughter, my family, my friends, being able to do things without looking at the statement. Oh shit, is this something I can afford this month? Right. And if you're always just trying to solve for that, but you don't do all these other little things or just the things that make you happy, then what good is it anyways? Like, what are you doing it for? So if you're like, oh, I can't do stand up because I can't focus on that, it's like maybe you're, you know what I'm saying? Like you're taking like these fun things that are what make you happy and you're getting rid of them. So I'm really happy to hear that you're doing comedy and you're going to put some shows together, and I'm excited about that.
You have to have priorities. Everybody listening is like, what? You have to have priorities. So,
Yeah.
yeah, business number one. That's what pays the bills. That's what, takes care of everything. That's what helps me to like, do all these other fun things.
Mhm.
Um, but that said, everything's hardest in the beginning when you're starting a business. That's the hardest when you're starting anything, starting to work out. That's the beginning is the hardest. Once you have PAL, which is something I call PAL, processes, automations, and leveraging, and then you
Mhm.
have those processes and everything in place, then and you have time under your belt, things ease up quite a bit. Then you're able to adopt other things. Now, then there's volatility, there's moments of volatility. Then you have to have priority number one takes precedence, and then you take that first. So, I'm not saying to like, that I'm going to be able to, right now I'm able to I have a plan, I'm able to
Right.
execute it, and I'm able to execute it on an indefinite basis. But if something falls to where, something jeopardizes business is number one, because that has to be nurtured, because that makes so much money.
Right. Yeah, I think that's really well said. Priorities is the big thing, having a process in place, really smart, but also like not losing your those things that really light you up too. And sometimes if you just clear them out completely, then it's like, what is this all for? You're right. You have to prioritize it. Like if you're only doing hobbies, like something doesn't make money, then the old joke is that's just a hobby. Like if you're doing stand up and not making money, it's a hobby. But look, Sebastian Maniscalco or whatever, like look at his career in the last 7 years, he's turned it into this extremely lucrative thing. So it's not that stand up doesn't make money. It's just, there's different ways to do it is my point. So again, just, I think it's really well said.
Yeah, people have multiple businesses, right? So, like, I know somebody that personally that has 7 businesses, and it was always hardest at the beginning, and then they put processes and automations and leverage in place. Then that runs on, and they have several businesses. So, but they have to be good at what they do. You have to be attentive. You can't let up off the gas. You got to be very careful. Can't spread yourself too thin. But to me, I have my outdoor business.
Hmm.
That's where I sell a widget. I have a realty business, okay, that's does decently and helps me make money now. It didn't make money in the beginning, but now it does. Hardest in the beginning. And then my other business, I consider stand-up comedy, which I'm starting up again. But that business, I'm not pressured for that to make money, to make a living.
Which is a healthy
So I
place
can
to be for the comedies too, because if you have a gun to
it
your head saying you
is.
got to be great, and tomorrow's your date that you
I
have
don't
to
give a
do it.
shit. I don't know if I can swear on your podcast, but it's like I
Yeah,
could do what I want, how I want, the speed I want. It frees me up as an artist, and now I'm able to just and I could do stand up wherever I want. It could be open mic. I'm not trying to like. I don't have to kiss anybody's ass,
right.
and it really is a nice place. So but it is a business because I do have a plan for it. Everything I do has a plan for it. I won't tell you
Hmm.
what my plans are for stand up comedy, but my plans for business
Yeah.
comes first, and I have a plan for everything that I do. But
Hmm.
I don't put limits on myself. I used to,
Yeah.
and that's what personal development's all about.
But
Whenever you
it's
talk about
awesome,
personal
brother,
development,
because like you raised your family, it sounds like you did a lot of things the best that you can, and that's all. As a dad, that's all we can do is always try to give our best, and we don't always have the answers. And if we learn, we certainly do. If you make a mistake, you can learn from it. If you do it right, you want to replicate that again. It's the same in business. It's the same in life. But I think a lot of people listening, and I just want to talk to the dads right now, is realize like Michael and I. I raised an 8-year-old girl, and you have 17 and 14. You said right, two
yeah.
children, and now like you're starting to maybe get a little bit of just a little bit of your free time back, and you're like, what can I do with this, right? And so stand-up's coming back into the picture. I think that's awesome. Talk to our audience real quick, and if someone's sitting there right now, maybe they're at a 40-hour plus 50-hour week job, and they're it's paying the bills, but they're trying to transition into a business. What would be like maybe the top 3 things you would suggest to them before they make that transition and kind of walk away from corporate to go into full entrepreneurship?
We'll create a plan. I open up a Excel spreadsheet, and I'd say, okay, first of all, you ask yourself the who, what, where, why, when, and how. What do I want? What do I, do I want to sell a widget? Do I want to sell a service? Do I want to, what do I want to do? What kind of business do I want to get into? Right. And then you say, let's say you want to sell a widget. Do you want to create it? You want to patent it? How much money do you want to do a Me Too product? You start to get specific, ask yourself tons of questions, a lot of conversation going on. Once you find out those things, I have all these ideas. Well, then you got to put it down on paper. You got to put down on a spreadsheet. I'm a big spreadsheet guy. I used to not be. Now I am. And then I was like, okay, this is the product. This is how I did it. All your ideas, you gotta purge. It's like writing a screenplay. It's like writing a stand-up comedy. It's no difference. You write your ideas down so you can get the bad ideas out and the good ideas out of your mind and onto a piece of paper. And then then you get scope of understanding everything and say, okay, is there a viability for this? What's the competition? What's going out there? You do research online. You start to scour on, see who would be my competition if I was going to do X, Y, or Z, whatever service or business it is, their widget I want to sell. And then say, what are my price points? How much can I get this for? There's so many, but I would start doing this dialogue every single day, and I would take immediate action on
Yes.
doing this and then I would set a date. I would backdate it, say, look, if I'm serious about this, I'm going to do this in 2 years, or give yourself more than enough time. But I would backdate it and say, well, how long would it take you to start a business and do everything and create a business plan? Even though you don't have to try to get funding from anybody, you
Mhm.
create a business plan for yourself. Just start to, you have to have a full understanding. So then I would do all these things, but I would backdate it. Say, okay, 2 years from now, okay, that's more than enough time. And and I would write all the milestones and actions that you need to take on a spreadsheet.
This is so good. Guys, this is gold, by the way. So, like, I hope you're taking notes and go back. If you're driving right now, come back to this marker and then start taking these notes because these are really good. I'm definitely learning a lot from you right here.
Well, there's no immediate action, and also if you've never, I would study personal development. Also, I tell everybody that if you want to be a stand-up comedian or an actor or an entrepreneur, no matter what, if you want to be in business for yourself, if you want to go for, even if you have a relationship, I would study personal development because it's a really heady thing being an entrepreneur if you haven't been one. And especially I don't know any other way, but I know that even if you grew up around it and it's in your DNA, then it's still heady. And there's bad times, and you got to look at tragedy like it's just a learning experience, and you just got to keep on going on and just move forward with this crazy Zen-like kind of like nonstop moving forward without slowing down. And speed is really important. And then at the same time, you need to go as fast as you can because and also make the least amount of mistakes that you can, which is preparation.
It's
So
like a
preparation is
NASCAR driver, brother. You got to be that precise with every little movement, right?
right. 95% of preparation of success is preparation. Once you're prepared and once you go to the starting line, you got to go as fast as you can and just, try to do the best you can. And don't worry about the mistakes, just worry about the solutions.
Mic drop moment right there with Michael Stein. That was awesome, brother. And man, you hit on it. Planning. One of the things I learned from my dad, he always says you got to have a plan. Now, he wasn't a business savvy person at all, but he said that no matter what. Like, you want to go play these clubs and be in a band and go on a tour, like, what's your plan? And he always asked me, you got to have a plan. And then action is so important. I know a lot of people who take action and try to figure it all out later. I get it, but like you said, if 95% is planning and preparing, and then you go execute it, look, like a football coach and a offensive coordinator is not going to go into the game with no plan and just wing it and tell their quarterback just figure it out like backyard ball. There's some of that will happen because as an entrepreneur, and I'm not talking to you like to try to educate you, but talking to really the audience and just having this be one big conversation, it's very similar to that. You go in with a plan, but many times as an entrepreneur, something's going to go haywire. And then the thing I really learned from being my own business owner now is just learning how to be quick on my feet. You talked about speed and just how quick do you get back up off the mat when you get knocked down? Don't sit down there, lay down there. It's going to be hard to do it some days, but you pull yourself back up. And how quick do you get to that next punch, right? And then you create your next plan based on the things you learned from that first one. The other thing I think I don't want to run too far past this because it's super important. You talked about the spreadsheets and the things that a lot of entrepreneurs are more visionary and not always the number. So if you're not the number person or the spreadsheet person, get someone on your team that can do that for you. Because that's not my forte either. But something I've learned through a lot of mentors, and you just mentioned it, is know the numbers that you're solving for. Like you said, have like your big vision, but know what it is. your quarterly goals, tackle it that way. We talked about baseball in the beginning. My spreadsheet right now for sales is built on a baseball mindset. How many swings, hits, getting, on base, knocking around a run, how many times you pick up the phone, make a call, email. It's all in there, but it's like based on baseball statistics, batting averages. Now, and basically that's just how I like to understand it. It makes it a little bit more fun. Find your thing. I'm talking to everybody here. Find your thing that works for you. Do you want to elaborate a little bit more on that, or did you?
I was just gonna say one more thing is that like I have my oldest daughter. She's actually going to international DECA in a couple weeks. She's one of the finalists. She won district, she won state, and now she's going to internationals for entrepreneurship, competing against other countries. And she's always done a lot right. The younger one's got the ADHD like me. I see a lot of parallels between the younger one. The older one doesn't know how to fail as much. She knows how to succeed.
Yeah.
The younger one doesn't know how to succeed as much, but she's used to failing.
Mhm.
I was used to failing. Sometimes when people, anybody that wants to jump to be an entrepreneur that's used to working, that's not used to doing their own business, a lot of entrepreneurs are very familiar with failing. They learn how to fail, not to. I'm not saying to fail.
Yeah.
Learning how to fail and learning how to succeed after
Because it's
failure.
almost inevitable that it will happen to some level, degree, whether it's completely. But you never, if you don't stop, complete failure is not an option if you keep moving, because you just
Right.
readapt. Like I actually had a situation where the first couple of years in business, things were looking, kind of doom and gloom because it wasn't popping as quickly as I anticipated in my spreadsheets and everything. And then I got into podcasting, and then it blew up, and I ended up having a much better business plan, and things are going extremely well right now. 2022 is our best year yet. In 2023, we're already like, our trajectory is already to break down that barrier into our new best year yet, right? So things are going well, but they weren't always like that. And it's just like, again, how do you kind of fail forward mentality? Not to be like a corny Instagram quote, but it's true, dude. That's like what truly happens in business.
Yeah, it's the speed thing again,
Mhm.
because when a lot of people that fail, they wallow, they try to make sure that they do so much time not to fail again. As where it's like, if you're used to failing, you just go passing it. You're just going, "Oh, okay, next thing, next thing, next thing. Okay, fine, whatever. It doesn't matter. When you do stand up comedy, you fail all the time. That joke that didn't work, that one worked, that one didn't work. It's failing in real time.
Yeah.
It's like you're
But
right
it's like
there.
it's similar to Rocky. It's like that boxing match where you're gonna get punch, punch, punch. You just keep coming back, right? And then
Right.
obviously you get better, so now you're delivering more of the punches instead of taking them all the time. But whatever analogy you want to put, it's just so true. It's inevitable that it's going to happen. But I feel the most successful entrepreneurs are the ones that can fail and still keep coming at you, almost like what is it, Michael from Halloween or whatever, or Jason, these guys that just keep coming no matter what the hell hits them. They're like an entrepreneur.
Right.
They just keep going forward. I don't care what you do. You just can't end them. And that's kind of I know that's a silly analogy, but that's kind of the energy you need to have, is that you just keep moving no matter what. And it doesn't mean like, if you're not happy, then you got to ask yourself, like, why am I fighting for this? If you have a good reason, then you keep fighting. I know we're kind of running low on time. I want to ask you, I should ask you this much earlier, but the power of podcasting, something I get asked about a lot, and I'm always usually the one talking about it. I want to kind of hear it from somebody else. You have a successful podcast. Talk about what podcasting, like, what has it done for you, your personal brand, your connections, your network. Take it from here.
You get like this intimate education from whatever they have. And I try to do it. I'm asking them questions that build up to an algorithm of like, then what happened? What did mom and dad do for a living? How did that happen? Where'd you grow up? What was the first inciting incident? How did you start that? And I dissect every single thing from the point that they were born to the point where, and I always finish it. What do you have planned for the next 3 to 5? Because I want to know out every single point from these decisions that they've made. And I get to find that out. I talk to astronauts, I talk to Holocaust survivors, I talk to people that were homeless that now have a house. I've talked to so many people that are like billionaires, and you find out these algorithms. So the thing is the knowledge, and it starts off with I was always into personal development before this. But what the podcast does is it takes you do it so much. If you do it, at least I do 3 episodes a week. If you do it so much, it's in like any knowledge, it's unconscious incompetence. I didn't do a podcast and I didn't get to talk to these people. Then I start talking to them. I get conscious incompetence. I'm like, wait, I hear what they're talking about, but I don't know how to do it. Then after a while, I get to talk to these people. Now I have conscious competence to where I'm like, I know what that is. And I understand it because I've talked to several other people and I've gotten to the point now we got 350 some odd episodes. And now I'm at the point where I'm like, I have unconscious competence where sometimes they're talking about something. I'm like, oh yeah, that's X, Y, and Z. And that's the first and foremost. As far as like getting my name out there, I mean, yeah, that's cool. It's maybe a little bit more popularity
It's like
than,
a
because I
co-benefit. It's not why you do it, but it happens. I mean, that's how people know to do business with you because now they know, like, and trust you more. When you're a guest,
see what we're
like on
doing
my
right here,
show.
me and you. Yeah, you're in Buffalo. I'm here in Georgetown, Texas. We get to talk like this. Nice Italian guy. You're talking to me. This is
You
fun for
talking
me.
to
This is
me? You talking to
you
me?
talking. You're talking to me. I'm talking to you. I love you. I want to be with you. So this is remember that's a Goodfellas reference. So
Yeah.
this is amazing. And you can't this all the six human needs are met with podcasting.
Mhm.
Six human needs. Talk about personal development. It's significance, certainty, uncertainty, love, growth, contribution, um, and connection. And we're getting them right here. All six human needs, so it fits a lot of voids. So I love podcasting. I don't think I'll ever stop. It's what a great medium.
Micheal, I don't know what episode this is going to be. It's somewhere around 179, 180 episodes. You got me beat, not a competition, but that is probably one of my favorite moments on the show of all time because you just articulated way better than I can. That's one of my Italian things is I just call everything the thing and my tongue's a little heavy sometimes, but you articulated it really well. I've learned the same thing, man. I'm downloading all the information from my guests. It's about as good as I'll articulate. I can't even say the word, right? So it's downloading from the people that we meet. And then it's also the connections. I'd say that's the biggest one right there for me personally, because you're spot on, man. The people you hang out with, the astronauts, I've had Olympians on, they become friends too. You can call them up. They're on my phone, like you and I email now, and I'm going to continue to follow what you got going on.
Yeah,
And you got a
absolutely.
friend here, man. And whenever I've been to Texas a couple times for like business trips and stuff, but I usually don't stay too long. But next time I'm there, I'm going to look you up. We'll hang out. We can, whatever. I'll buy you dinner. Is there anything before we wrap up that you want to hit on that you feel our audience would really kind of consume and just help them out? Is there anything we didn't hit on yet that you want to give them?
You said you said your people like to, they're entrepreneurs or a lot of people
My
listening are
people
trying to
are
start
your
a
people,
business.
man. The floor is yours.
Well, long shot leaders is, very much like that too. So I would just tell us what I would say. Look, if you're thinking about starting a business, or you want to do stand-up comedy, or you want to be an actor, or you want to be a filmmaker, or you want to do anything, or you just got over this shitty relationship and you don't want to ever like enter a bad relationship again. I always say the same thing. Get invested in personal development. I was a big Tony Robbins guy. I've done every seminar he's done. I've been to Fiji. I've done the whole, he's got a big thing out there. It's a journey, and personal development to me is the best way to start, any venture. Understand why you do what you do and understand why people do what they do in general and start there.
And here's the thing, man. There's a lot of podcasts. I didn't read books in school. We joked about getting pulled into the reading class. I didn't like to read, but when it comes to personal development, I devour books now. I finish them before, like, within a week, I'll go cover to cover or whatever, just reading a chapter a night. But yeah, once you fall in love with something and that you're getting that benefit from it and it's interesting to you, you really do devour it. And personal development, everyone has their own voices they like to hear from. Like for me, Ed Milet, his podcast, his books, Lewis House, The School of Greatness got me thinking differently. That word greatness was almost like, what are you talking about? Why would you, wait, like starting to rewire the brain little by little. And podcasting and books and personal development courses and webinars and mentors, man, there is no, and there's no end game. We're always developing until the day we pass. Like, I hope everybody that's listening to this thinks of life as a way where you don't learn it all and then you stop. Like you can keep going and you keep growing, man, every day.
I'm aging myself, but I have this romantic, thing. To me, I'm there's two references I'll give you. I love Asian philosophy. You know, Taoism and Buddhism. Have you ever seen the movie The Last Samurai? Watanabe, the actor Watanabe, looks at cherry blossom tree and says, "You could search your whole life for the perfect cherry blossom, and it would not be a wasted life." And then there's Kane from Kung Fu that talks about trying to find, he's searching, he's also, I think he's first searching for a friend, but he's also searching for higher consciousness. And that's to me what life is about. The meaning of life is, for me, I'm trying to search for a higher consciousness.
Hmm.
So hopefully, you're always, unless your faculties go south someday, God forbid, you're always kind of trajectory from left to right with an arrow that's going upwards,
Hmm.
towards a higher consciousness.
Yeah. For me, what drives me is this purpose, like knowing whether it's a skill, it's a thing, it's an energy, something I'm good at, or I can help somebody else with. That I feel like is my purpose. And it's not just one person, there's 7 billion people. So there's a lot of people we can help out. And whoever's listening to this show right now, especially all the way at the end, we're grateful for you being here. I always like to end every episode saying, be great and be grateful. That's my thing. And I'm extremely grateful for you giving me an hour of your time, Micheal. I know you don't have a lot of those hours to be passing around, so I appreciate you being here. Guys, remember, go check out Long Shot Leaders. A couple weeks back, I was on there, so if you want to learn more about my story, you can hear it from a different lens. Micheal, thank you so much, brother, for being here. You know what to do. Be great and be grateful. I'd like to give a huge shout out to everyone for tuning in, especially those who listen all the way to the end to hear this message. Seriously, I appreciate you, and my guests do as well. Giving a quick reminder to subscribe to this show. It's completely free and will allow you to receive notifications when new episodes are released. If you'd like to provide a tip as a gift, you can do so via patreon.com/mikedup. It's spelled MIKED up. Patreon.com/mikedup. You can give as little as $1 per month or as much as you'd like. Every dollar is greatly appreciated and completely unexpected. Appreciate your reviews and your messages coming in on social as well. Keep them coming. Your feedback is valuable and absolutely means the world to me. You can check out more episodes and content at mikeduppodcast.com. We're powered by Social Chameleon. You can also follow me on Instagram. That's where I'm the most active, and it's at Mike DiCiccio, MIKEDICIOCCIO. Thank you so much for your continued support. You guys know what to do. Be great and be grateful.